Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everyone. It's Lydia with the Oneness Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And today, as I always am, very excited to introduce you to my guest. I'm here with Jewels Arnes. Hi, Jewels.
Hi, Lydia.
It's great to have you on the Oneness Junkie podcast. And I like to start off sharing with my guests whether I know or don't know the guest that I'm hosting. And actually, today I had a chance. This guest, Jules, I had a chance to go to one of her events about 2 weekends ago, and I had the best time. My sister introduced me to join her for Jules' event, and I immediately asked her, would you like to be on the podcast? Because she's a total fit for the oneness concept. So I want to dive in and have Jules introduce herself, share a little bit about her background so that the guests can bring us up to speed to what we're going to be talking about today. And without further ado, Jules, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say that I've been on the journey my whole life. I actually remember coming into this life. I knew why I was here, and I haven't ever forgot. When I was about age 5, I started having what I called back then the blue men. And they were really tall, white blue beings that brought me 3 symbols. And they kind of downloaded the symbols into my body. A lot of times they would use them to work with the programming of my mind. And of course, I didn't know. I'm putting my words to it now at 5 years old. I enjoyed. I loved when they came to me. I loved spending time with them. I always felt at home and at peace. And really, they've been within my life on and off ever since. There's definitely times in there where I wouldn't see them as much, and then they would come back. And right around the age of 16, I actually got kicked out of the house. And I went to AA, and I met my first sponsor, who was my first teacher. So she recognized my gift of seeing and started teaching me how to read energy and how to use frequency as a transmitter. And I stayed on the path the rest of my life. I even got to a place where I stopped going to teachers and started going inside. And that's really when my life took a big shift, is when I started to listen to what I was here to do in a way that wasn't interrupted through the teaching of others. And not that all the teachings were amazing, but my biggest teacher was myself, and to go inside and listen to that internal guidance. So I did. I've been a healer and a teacher my whole life. I used to reprogram the mind. I would have people would come to me, and they would talk about whatever it was that they were ready to shift, whether that was healing on a physical level, on an emotional level, something that they were trying to shift in their life. They would talk about what it was, and then they would lay down on my table, and I would energetically go into the mind and reprogram the synapse responses, and then reprogram them at a higher frequency. They would get off the table and they would go live their life. Until about 2013, when I had a severe spine injury, and I was told I would never use my left arm again. I was in severe pain, even after having a surgery. They came out of the surgery. It was supposed to be a 2-hour surgery, and it went 8 hours. And when I came out, they basically said that there was nothing that they could do, that they did what they could, but the damage was much more than what they thought. And so they kind of sent me home, and I was still in a lot of pain, still not able to use my arm. And one day I was laying on my table and I just said, you know, if this is how I'm supposed to be for the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. But if there's something more, it would be now would be a good time to show me what that is. And I had a burst of energy released from my pineal gland and shot down through my spine. And I felt my neck cracking all the way down. And then an explosion in my cells is the only way I can explain it. Just, it was like electricity just went from my cells, and I was healed instantly. And I knew that at that point, my journey was to move from the mind to the DNA. And so I have been uh, very diligently, and I would say a very strong devotion to turning on the 12 strand DNA system. I was given the 6 steps of cell ascension, and really focusing now on where we're headed as, you know, the human race. Like, what's next for us? Like, what are we becoming? And really starting to tap into what's possible there.
Well, and apparently helping us understand what's possible for ourselves, right? Because a lot of us don't know what you just shared within ourselves. Like we're all just learning it. And that's part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast, was to just open this dialogue and conversation and then let the universe put this video in front of the people who are resonating at this frequency, so that they draw this information to them as a next step. You know, we talked about the breadcrumbs. Remember, I mentioned that in your event. So I feel like this is a breadcrumb that we can put out there for someone to get to know how you're helping people, you know, do that. I do have a question about, do you have teachers? Do you have like people that you respect that, you know, before we hit record, we were talking about Bruce Lipton and you were saying that you really like him. So give us an idea of some of the people that you put yourself in front of to learn more about the DNA.
Yeah, you know, when I was 17, I started an apprenticeship with a Lakota medicine woman. I worked with her for six years. Eva White Desert Eagle was her name. And I would say the biggest thing I walked away with her teachings was not only a really strong love for what the Native Americans really embody, and in the connection to the earth and the sky and the elements, but she taught me how to reach high states of consciousness naturally. And because before then I was very into the psychedelics and advancing consciousness through psychedelics, and she taught me how to do it naturally. And it was a really pivotal moment for me, and that really allowed me to explore consciousness on a new level. And I really only had one other teacher after that. I had one other teacher, and that's when I was told to start going within. And I studied Bruce Lipton's work for a short amount of time in that space. And oh my gosh, he's my favorite person. I absolutely love him. And one of the things I love about him is that he continued his journey even when people thought he was crazy and didn't think of anything was he kept going because something inside of him knew that what he had was going to change the world. And I'm going to say I have that same feeling, and I've been told I'm crazy many times. But now we're at this point where what the information that has come through me is doing that, it's changing people's lives in ways that is so beyond what we have here. So I would say my hero is Bruce Lipton.
I love it.
And but besides that, I don't watch podcasts. I don't read books. I actually was told not to from my internal guidance, so that everything that comes through is clean and pure, and there's no interference in where I'm picking up on information.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. So, that's great. Do you feel like we can dive into some of the things that you shared with us at that event? Or is there anything else about like your background or the past that you want to discuss before we go into things that I want to share with the audience that you've offered to the world?
Yeah, I feel like every part of my story is connected into that. And after my spine injury, about 2 years later, my best friend passed away. And when he was dying, he and we created this agreement that I would follow him. And I did. So the day that he died, I was driving back to his house. Of course, he died right when I left to go home and take a shower. But I was driving back and I was crying. And he said, "Don't cry or you won't be able to hear me." And I started our journey, and I followed him. And it took about, now it's like I'm not really sure in the exact time, but it was right like 6 to 8 months, or 6 to 8 months, 6 to 8 weeks after he passed away. And I got to a place where he was like, you can't keep going until I get permission. And I was like, okay. So I kind of hung out and waited for him to come back. And he said that I'm getting chills, that they gave me permission to enter what they called the Council of Light. And I did. And there's 12 energies. There was no light. There was no bodies. It's just they were conscious. There was a room of consciousness, you could say. And that they started giving me equations, and I started coming out of whatever trance I was in when I was giving the equations, and I would write them down. And that's how I got the alchemy for Ormus. And I know you have a little bottle of Ormus there. And so that was my first experience of bringing a multidimensional element into the world, and it just hasn't ever stopped. But equations, ironically, is how I'm given information. And the funny thing about that is that I have dyslexia with numbers.
I was just going to ask you if you were like a mathematician.
And I'm not at all, but somehow I understand it. And I've even recently been given the information that the level of quantum mechanics that I'm working with is not defined even through the way that we use mathematics now, and that it is a multidimensional system that I'm guessing that if I were to give it to somebody that is trained in quantum mechanics, that it may not make sense to them, but somehow I'm able to define what it is.
I love that. That's so neat. You just mentioned the Ormus. Do you want to just go in and help people understand what this is and how to use it?
Yeah, so ORMUS, it stands for Orbited Rearranged Unidentified Substance, or it could be ORME, and it's Orbited Rearranged Monoatomic Element. So it is, they're elements that are in a spin state, meaning that they are both form and spirit. So if you look at an ORMUS element under a microscope, you'll see it, and you could even say, oh, that's going to be the element of gold. But then it disappears and it spins and then it comes back. So they call it the multidimensional element. our fifth dimensional element. It's ancient. It's been around since the Egyptians, maybe even before. It's in the Bible, called mana in the Bible. But for my personal experience, I say that there is life before Ormus and life after Ormus. It made that big of a shift for me. And when I finally mastered the alchemy that I was given, it took me probably a couple of weeks before I actually chose to ingest it. I was taking baths with it, and I was getting my body ready for it. And it was like when I took it, it was my body turned on, my consciousness opened up in a way that I haven't experienced, and it's been that way ever since. So it's really been life changing for me. But it also it extends telomere length, and it activates the pineal gland, and it's amazing for healing. It will heal things much quicker than without it, and that's one of the things that it's really known for, is the ability to heal.
How are you able to um, like report that it does grow the telomeres? Because I know that's something that I'm hearing a lot lately with people's products, and I'm just curious. Like all of this is for entertainment purposes only, you know, because there's medical things that people can get in trouble for saying. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how does it, how have you seen? Is it just that you were told that it grows telomeres, or have you been able to research it or like really see telomeres growing?
Yeah, no, the exciting thing now is that you can actually get your telomeres tested.
Ah,
And so I did a telomere test. You can see your biological age and your telomere age, which is based on how long your telomeres are. So I did it, and my telomere age was 37 years old. And then I took not just the Ormus, I did Ormus, and then we have a supplement. It's called the Particle Accelerator. And I did the Copper Card. So I did all three together. And within 10 months, I did my telomere test again. And I came back at 19 years old.
I can see that. I mean, you look like the age that you're representing, you know. I don't even know how old you are, so that's not important, but the idea that you're able to, use some level of a test to identify um, your telling age is, this is the talk right now, like even in the biohacking
Mhm.
community. Do you go to any of those events, like like the Dave Asprey one in Austin, or any?
Yeah, I did his event. I've done his event twice. I actually spoke at his event a couple of years ago, and he endorses our Ormus. He's a big fan of our Ormus, which has been really nice having his support, because it is such a different it's one of those things that you can't really put your finger on. And I'm just going to kind of speak for him here, but it drives him crazy too, because he loves to have the science and the evidence, and then he has this magical thing that's he healed a scar that, and he couldn't believe it went away as fast as it did, and he couldn't figure out how it happened. And so it's always fun having conversations with him, just for that reason, because he is so science based, and then I'm on the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned that. So did you tell us everything about the Ormus? How much, when you gave this to us at your event, you said a drop a day, I think is what you suggested. But is that the regular dose when you buy a larger bottle?
Yeah, it just depending on what you're using it for, you can put a couple drops in your water bottle. A lot of people will use it on their face and use it almost like a toner. So, of course, that would be more like 3 or 4 drops. You can add it into your skincare and just rub it into the skincare, and then apply it that way as well. If you're using it for a cut, then of course it's just a little drop of Of course, open wounds, it can be a little bit more painful because there is, we do pull the elements from Dead Sea salt. So there is a salty taste to it, and it will
Yeah.
also feel that way. But a friend of mine, he wiped out. He was in Bali, and he was driving one of their little mopeds and wiped out and completely road rash, all his leg and his arm. And he called and he's like, "Can I put Ormus on it?" I was like, "It's gonna hurt, but go ahead." And so he did, and he called back like it wasn't even 48 hours later. He's like, "I don't know what this is," but he's like, "I can feel it opening up portals in my cells." And he's like, he did a before and after picture, and he was like, "It's already almost gone." And he just couldn't even believe it. He can't stop talking about it. He's like, "I've never seen anything like this." He was open, he was ready. He like asked the Ormus to heal him, and it did.
That's awesome. Well, I have a little swollen tonsil. I think I'm gonna drop her some back there on my tonsil when we're finished. Yeah, I put bee propolis on it 2 days ago, and it really shrunk the inflammation by putting that on there. So I always try to do a natural remedy if I can, and I prefer that. It just feels like the right thing to do is natural. So I like the idea of trying the Ormus on different things. I did put it on like a sunspot that I had here, like a dark sunspot. But I guess you have to have like more consistency with it, right? It's not going to go away with one little drop.
Yeah, it was something like that. Like I have one right here, and it's funny, and then it'll go away, and then sometime I'll go out in the sun for 3 or 4 days, and it'll start to come back. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put it back on again, and but it always does go away. But consistency, and then also telling it what you want it to do, I find makes it work even better. Is okay, erase this dark spot, and so it will pick up on what it is that you're asking it to do.
Speaking of that, back when you were healing your spine injury, did you use talk like that to your cells? What did you actually do to heal your body? Was it spontaneous healing, or was it a protocol, or something you followed?
Yeah, no, it was spontaneous. I think I was ready to step into what was next, and all the protocols I was doing was what I knew, and I knew that wasn't the answer, right? And that I was open to what it was the answer, and that's when I was it was time to go to the DNA was really what the answer was. And of course I had the experience, but then I had to go and figure out how I did it. And so that kind of became the journey. And there was a lot of it, what I call a tuning. And we kind of played with that when you were at the event, is asking for information instead of going into the mind to find the answer, is kind of matching the frequency of what the answer was. And I just got really good at doing that. I was always pretty good at it, just kind of using consciousness as a way of picking up on frequency and then being able to read the intelligence of that frequency. But this took it to a whole nother level. It really did. It's been quite a journey, and really exciting. And I never really thought there would be an ending to it. Not that there's an end, but there are like 6 steps, and we all have the ability to turn on this higher operating system of the body, and healing becomes something completely different when the operating system of our body knows what to do way beyond what our consciousness can understand.
Yeah, it's amazing. Is a lot of the information in the book that you wrote that
Mhm.
that you were
Yeah,
talking about?
that the book that you're talking about, the by becoming bioquantum, is step one. It's step 1 of 6. So that book is really focused on, it does have a workbook that kind of goes into consciousness a little bit deeper, but it teaches how to hold consciousness in the abstract. Because in order to change, we can't identify within the reality that we're in. And whether that's identifying in the ego, in our programming, in our belief systems, in what we see within the material world, it teaches us that there's so much more than the material or what can be proven, and that we have the ability to begin to use consciousness as a tool versus an identity. And that's a practice to know the difference and know when you're doing one or the other, and what to do once you recognize it. So I like to teach that level of consciousness, or to shift it into using it as a tool through manifestation, because that's something that everybody loves to play with and see what's possible. And one of the fastest ways to manifest is to purify consciousness. And so that's one of my biggest passions.
I love that. One of the takeaways that my sister and I got from your event was just identifying when we're speaking, like that something is our program. And so I was telling my sister, we should make a pact that when we hear the other person speaking in their program, that we have the ability to, bring that to the forefront and go, well, that's your program, to help you recognize that you're not living from infinite possibilities, which is the space, right? That's the quantum space that you want to live in so that you can manifest, right?
Mhm. That's beautiful. I love that you guys are doing that. We all need to have somebody that holds that reflection for us, because the possibility is always there.
Yeah. I'm really grateful and lucky because in our paths, we were really, or my sister and I were really close up until the point where she got married, and she was living here in Colorado and I was in Texas, and she was more evangelical Christian. And even though we both grew up Baptist, I kind of was more open to looking at what else is out there. I was questioning a lot of life at that age. And so she went, that extreme. And I was doing like going to Abraham Hicks and, Spirit of the Anatomy and reading books to try to open myself up to higher levels of consciousness. But the whole time that I was growing and in this realm, and it was about a 20-year period, I just said, I wish that my sisters and I could be learning this together. And so, as powerful creators, I would have never imagined that the life that she was living, which was very evangelical, would ever get to the place where we would be on the same parallel at the same time. And it's just so amazing how what I really wanted for my life, which was to have her on this journey with me, like we're living in that moment right now, in the present moment. And people can, it can shift. I don't know if it's going to be like this forever. Hopefully it is, and I'd be very grateful. But when she introduced me to come to your event, and she said, hey, I want to go to this, do you want to come? I was like, yes, because I feel like the universe is always putting in front of me the next thing that I'm supposed to be learning from, like the teachers, if I'm not there yet myself. And I love what you're saying about going within. That's one thing I really haven't, you know like you, I haven't stopped listening to teachers. I haven't, you listen to yourself and your information and your download from your higher self, or whoever's giving you the messages. And I'm just not at that frequency yet. Like I feel like I'm still in the realm of needing to learn from people like you, but I've been very attracted to your teachings. And me and my sister are both looking into what are the types of ways we can engage with your community or learn from you, because I feel like you're here as a teacher, right? Do you feel that way as well, that that's your mission, is to teach others?
Yeah, my mission is definitely to teach others of their own power. And that it's not that hard to tap into. And that's why, step one is learning to use consciousness as a tool, because that's where the power comes, is that when we're able to release what we think we know and consistently challenge ourselves to move into a conscious state where we are open to receiving what's beyond what we know. And that's evolution, right? That's not just evolution of consciousness, it's evolution of mankind. And when we start to do that, we start to recognize that life really is multidimensional. And not only is our consciousness have the ability to be multidimensional, but our body also is. And that's when, for me, going in and recognizing that, well, what does that mean? And when we start to kind of move into an intelligence that's downloaded in our DNA, then we start to experience that we are not just multidimensional, but we actually have a divine technology that has an intelligence that when we get out of the way and let this intelligence fully come online, we start to be informed by that intelligence in a way that it's hard to experience when everything is within the material world or based on what we know.
I love that. Is there a term? Okay, so you know how the big talk these days is AI, which is artificial intelligence. Is there a term for the intelligence that you just spoke of that's within us, that's in our DNA? What is that called?
Yeah, I call it I call it the body, when that's turned on, it's divine molecular technology. And you could say just divine technology for short.
It's DMT.
It's DMT. And there's a reason that I actually, that was the name that was given, is that DMT on a chemical level can be measured at 963 hertz. And when we're born, that frequency is released from the pineal gland. And then when we die, the same thing happens. Well, in 2022, one of our good friends of our families, he died on his 22nd birthday. And he came to me after he died, and he said, get a pen and get a pencil. And he's like, I'm going to have you write all this down. So I started writing. And one of the things he did is he took my consciousness and he brought it out so that we were kind of out in the stars, and he showed me the earth. And then when I was out here, everything, like, we were interconnected. Our consciousness is one frequency. And even looking at the earth, it was still within the field where we weren't really observing it, we were experiencing it. And then you have us started going closer and closer and closer. And the closer we got to it, the more separate and the more like we moved into observation of what we were seeing. And then he placed the flower of life over the earth, and he said, this is this is how the world is distorted. And so he showed me how every time that we think we break out of a belief system, that we just move into another one of the circles, and another and another. And he's like, but you never move out of the observed state of the flower itself. And so he showed me, he was like, but when you go inside of it, and he brought me through the center of it, and then he turned me around and he showed the DNA turn on. And then all of a sudden my consciousness hit the frequency of the DNA, and everything turned into an expression. So talk about oneness, everything became unified. And he was like, this is how it always was supposed to be. And he's like, not only is this how we're supposed to be experiencing our life and our body, but when we move into this state, and that the DNA is fully turned on and operating, that we don't die.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh, I love it. I hope that the listeners are connecting to this conversation, because it's so beautiful. It's so rich and deep. And I'm really hoping it's serving those who are finding it. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about this card, how it came about? I know you said it was one of the downloads, and explain to people like how what's it made out of,
Yeah.
why is it made out of that. I want people to know about this because I love this little card and I've been using it.
Yeah, of course. So this is our one of our quantum technologies. So this, you can see the symbol at the top. I think I have a big one around here somewhere, but it is that is the technology that's working with the cells. It's and the way that our cells are working right now is kind of in that observed state. So our cells are always observing the environment of the body, of our thoughts, of our beliefs, of what we eat, how much we're exercising, in order to be told what to do, right? And this kind of going to Bruce Lipton's work is the biology of belief. Well, so this technology, what it does is based on the story I just told you as well with Vale's share, is that it actually shifts the way the cell is operating altogether, because the cell was never meant to be in an observed state. It was supposed to be in an expressed state. So what is the technology does is it takes the observation of the cell and brings it in to the 12 strand DNA system. So it starts to turn on the 12 strand DNA system, which releases a very specific frequency of 963. And then all of a sudden, the cell recognizes, oh, I'm more than just two strands of DNA that observes in the material or the biology that we all study. And it starts to recognize that I'm all 12 strands of DNA, and that 12 strand DNA system has a frequency. That frequency has an intelligence, and all 12 strands are doing something. So then all of a sudden the cell starts to move into expression, where it actually identifies as the frequency of source, because 963 is also the frequency of source. And then from there, you get to play in the technology of the 12 strands of DNA. So each one of these codes is connected to a strand of DNA, and they each hold a level of consciousness that we can experience the intelligence of the source within us. And they are all connected to an organ system. And so the idea behind it is that you can shift consciousness, but you also start to shift your experience of the body, as instead of identifying it as something separate than consciousness, that it starts to attune the body to these higher frequencies, where your consciousness starts to experience what your body is when it's fully turned on. And I'm just going to give you an example of what that can look like. When we start to turn on the advanced technology or the divine molecular technology of our body, is that system overrides the limitations of the mind. And that's why it's time to start activating the cells, the DNA, and stop focusing on the mind, because our technology knows exactly what to do. So an example of this, I was moving with flip-flops. I have no idea why that was a choice, but it was. And I hit my toe and bent the nail back on my toe, and it started gushing blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh gosh. Okay, so now I'm going to get to move the rest of the day with a broken toenail. And this is how fast it happened. I got on the elevator, went upstairs, went down to the apartment. And by the time I got in there, I looked down and I was like, oh, that's so weird. My toe doesn't hurt anymore. And so I went and I washed off the blood, and everything was back to normal.
Wow.
So, and that's not the first time that that's happened, but every time it happens, when you could say heal instantly, it shocks me, because it's not my consciousness that's doing it. It's not my mind that's doing it. It's the technology of my body. It knows how to do it. And it shows me over and over that it knows better. And so it's this place where it's like, okay, I can trust in this. And that's when we start to use consciousness as a tool to attune to the intelligence of our DNA. And not only do we start to experience our body in a much higher intelligent state, but we start to experience life, our like the way we see life, perceive life, all those different things.
On the backside, so why is it copper? I think the audience would love to know that. There's a reason.
Yes, it is. It's a transmitter. So it holds the frequency. So this is all connected to a scalar device that is activating the technology itself. And so you can do really practical things with it. You can charge your water, put your water on top of it. I have one on top of my refrigerator. And then on the back, there's quick shifts. So this is kind of moving from one timeline, shifting, if you will, from one timeline or one conscious experience to the other. So one's, for example, is manifesting. So if there's something that you're wanting to manifest, you would press 1, 2, 11, and 7. And so you just press on the code for about, anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds. It normally takes it, depending on how sensitive you are. For me, I almost feel like my body goes into like a little clicking, and that's when I know that it's downloaded. I'll press the code, and then you go live your life. There's some of the stories that are really fun. The manifesting one's really fun because it always shows up a little bit differently than you think, but it's always super magical.
So there's a little symbol that was given to you at the top, and from what I remember you sharing, you use your thumb and you turn it on, activate it with the top button, and then you do the code after that, right? So it's, and then you said 30 seconds, but that's, I guess, the max.
Yeah, that would
It's,
be the max. And even if you just press the top, this is what's turning your body, moving from an observed state to an express state. So if you're in a really big hurry, you could just press on that and you could say, okay, I want to move out of a state of worry or anxiety and into a state of joy, expansion, and abundance. And you could simply do that and it'll start turning on that specific frequency for you.
do you have to, I'm asking questions in case the audience is wondering too, like, do you have to believe in it for it to work?
Well, that's the cool thing is that no, but you do it over time. It's something that you have to commit to. And what will end up happening, especially those that don't necessarily like to believe in things, they like to have proof first, is that the frequency will start to turn on whether you believe it or not. And what ends up happening is that one day your consciousness hits the frequency of what's happening and your mind is just blown. And it's just all of a sudden you're in a different paradigm shift reality and you have no idea how it happened. It's because the body knows what to do and your mind doesn't matter.
Yeah. My sister has been diligently doing this as well. And she actually did have a timeline shift story that she told me about. And I won't mention names, but she basically had a sense that somebody that she hadn't talked to in a long time had passed away. So she Googled it and she found online a document that showcased this person's name, all the places they lived. It was definitely like this person, and it said they were deceased. And so then she got this other hit, like to ask somebody on Facebook Messenger or reach out or something like that. I can't remember what else she did that gave her a notion to do that. I think it was through Facebook Messenger. And she ended up having like a conversation with that person who wasn't dead. And she was like, wow, like I feel like I was shifting into another dimension where they are dead. And that's why she found something online that said they were deceased. But then she found that they weren't deceased, actually. And of course, I said things like, that could have been a hacker. And, are you sure it was her? And she was like, yeah, we talked about children and things deep that the hacker wouldn't have known. So I'm just sharing that, like, she's activating things and having experiences that she's never had before. And she's doing this diligently. I have been working on the last one that's called weight loss and detoxing, the 2567. I have that memorized because I've been doing it so much. And so, I can tell in my clothes that I feel like I'm shrinking at a cellular liquid level, like things are
Yeah.
tightening up, but I mean, I'm not like experiencing some dramatic, nor was I expecting, some kind of a dramatic situation. So, have you had any stories or experiences of people who have had visible physical um, experience? How long have you had this out?
Yeah, it's been out since 2023, the beginning of 2023, maybe the end of 2022. Um, but yeah, so usually I can actually give you one with my dog. That I mean,
Yeah.
I always like to do the personal ones, but so I have this bed that I don't know, it's obnoxiously tall. I have no idea why it's so tall, but and he tried to jump up and missed and hurt his foot. I mean, he was limping, he wouldn't walk, he was crying, and so I got the copper coral, and of course a drop of ormus I put on his paw, and but I had him lay on the copper card, and I took him to bed. He went to bed. He slept under the card. And then the next morning, we were going to get ready. And of course, I'm like, no, don't jump off the bed. But he got up and he ran around the bed and he jumped off and he was completely fine. So that's just, that's maybe a 10-hour period of time that he went from not being able to walk at all to jumping off the bed. But that those injuries seem to be the ones that heal very quickly. Something like weight loss, you have to think of what is the actual shift that's happening there, because it's so much more than just the weight itself. So what I would be curious is, okay, what consciousness is shifting, right? Is the way that you are perceiving food differently, or how you perceive maybe the way you look in the mirror differently. And those are the fun things that we start to explore. And it could be in a month from now, all of a sudden you have a conscious shift in the way that you perceive your body. Is like we don't always know how it's going to show up, but weight loss is one of those ones that there's normally a lot more going on than just the weight. And so just thinking about what am I open to receiving consciously as I take the journey to experience the weight loss. And then we have the journey in a new way, and that's when the card really can come in and support that, because it becomes fun and interesting, and we learn more about ourselves, and we end up finding that the weight loss was never even the thing that we were actually asking for. And a lot of times it's like deep self-love, and that we see nourishing in a new way, and just all these really beautiful things.
Yeah, I love it. And when I'm doing it, I feel like it's just an exercise in mindfulness because and I was holding it for the 30 seconds like I had heard. And so it's like 30 seconds on two, and 30 seconds on five, and 30 seconds on six, and 30 seconds on seven. And I feel like it's like programming my brain that I am choosing and consciously desiring this for my life. And so I feel like the ancillary or the steps after that match up with the belief system, because everything's in your beliefs, right? Even the negative things that got me the extra weight, um, our belief systems, right? And so it's about reprogramming. And you actually talked about that earlier. You said you help people reprogram their thoughts and their mind. Do you have like courses, or do you do one-on-one coaching? Like how do you work with people?
Yeah, so I don't reprogram the mind anymore. I teach people actually how to reprogram their cells. So step one is learning to use consciousness, because if we can't put consciousness in an abstract frequency, it's really hard to change, because we're going to keep going back to what we know. So that's step one. But then when we start the cell ascension journey, we move to step two, but really it's step one of cell ascension, and that is reprogramming the cells. So that's when I teach people how to read the frequency of their cells, and what vibration is holding, and then what that vibration is saying. And so it could be things like unworthiness. It could be the programming. You read the programming. So just like a software system, like our divine technology, if it's running a virus, then we want to take that virus out and activate a frequency that is a higher vibration. So it's teaching how the body how to shift identity. So we can shift from I'm unworthy to I'm vibrant, I'm powerful, whatever it is. So we use the ascension of the I am to reprogram on a cellular level. So it's step one, because we want our bodies to know that it has the ability to shift from one thing to the other, and that our cells can actually shift from thing to the other much quicker than our programmed mind, because the cells have an intelligence that is running in it. And when that intelligence is turned on, which we use the technology to reprogram the cells, when that technology is turned on and told what it has the ability to express, then all of a sudden our body is holding a frequency of, let's say, I am powerful. And that frequency is informing our consciousness. And then we organically begin to shift the way that we perceive. So it's another way of, you could say, reprogramming the mind, but you're doing it through the body instead of the mind.
I love this. And I just want to share with you, and I'll document it in this, conversation, that I feel connected to this, technology and the concepts. And if I could utilize, programming my cells and then being a demonstration of what's possible to shift the body, because I'm comfortable being what's called, I think I told you this, that I see myself, I identify as a light worker, and I identify as the kind that's called the way shower, which
Mm-hmm.
is the ones who are not uncomfortable using their own lives as a demonstration of either teaching or showing the way, by being out there and exposing myself to the public so they could believe that what she actually did really did cause her transformation. So I'm feeling like I want to commit to doing the practice to change myself so that I could show others that this is possible. And of course, I want it for myself, as well, you
That's
know?
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I can support you with that, let me know.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But I just feel connected to it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up in this conversation, in case like a year from now, we can go back and see, like, oh, she said she wanted to do that, and here she is, she's done it. And I do live from the concept of infinite possibilities, probably not in every area of my life, but in a lot of areas I've trained myself to think like that. And I just say, I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm like the observer, I don't know those steps. I don't have to know the steps. I just have to have the frequency and the desire, and come from that place. So that's why everything that you shared in the event resonated with me, and I felt grateful for myself to have been able to be at the frequency level that this is the type of training or experience that I'm, wanting to have now. And I've attracted you, into my life. And so I just think you're a beautiful soul, and you have so much to bring to the world. And I wanted the world to get to know you better. And yeah, I just really appreciate you. Is there anything that we haven't discussed? Like, do you have a community? Do you want to talk about your website? How do people find you if they want to get deeper with you and your work?
Yeah, so go to becomingBioQuantum.com, and you're going to land and you're going to see, oh my gosh, there's so much here. So, but if you just go to the top, you can look at our events. We do have a free event coming up on the 999. It's the Harmonic Gateway, where I will be channeling some frequencies, and the message is that this is one of the biggest gateways of mankind, and that we're sitting really in a space where we have the ability to shift the paradigm or shift consciousness to be realigned with what I call the new earth, some call heaven on earth, the fifth dimension. And this specific day is a harmonic gateway where we can attune the body to hold that frequency, and then we get to have the experience of that consciously. So it will start on the 9th, and then there'll be one every month through the end of the year, as in continuing to attune the body, so that by the time we end our 9 year, that we shift into the 11, which is Christ consciousness, instead of moving back to a 1 and repeating the cycle. So this is a really big year for those that are ready to experience heaven on earth. That's a free event coming up on the 9th. And then I also have for the Coloradoans that are, I have an event at the Star House in Boulder on October 18th, which I'm really excited about. And then we have always have lots of little mini workshops. I do have a university where you can go in and start the 6 steps of soul ascension. Some of those are going to be taught live. We have a couple live ones coming up. And then, of course, I just have my YouTube channel, and of course, all the product lines as well. I'm sure I missed stuff. Oh, we have a live membership too. It doesn't end. You just go and it's like Disneyland. Just pick what you want to experience.
That's awesome. While you were speaking, it made me realize that I wanted, if you're willing, and if you're not comfortable, that's fine. But at the event, you shared speaking in the light language, and I wanted to, if you're comfortable, I wanted the audience to understand, number one, what is light language, and then how do you learn it, and then does it just come to you, and then when you do it, are we getting anything? Is it an activation? Is it speaking to ourselves? Are you comfortable talking about that on the channel?
Yeah, of course. Kind of going back to the blue men, they they're the ones that give me the equation. So Council of Light, the blue men, and July, just right after July 4th, I've known the 6 steps of soul ascension for almost a year now. And it took that long for me to fully embody what it was and to really start to have the experience of what it was. And for that reason, they came back and they said, okay, well, now that you've had the experience of activating this and having this as a very personal journey that I obviously taught and shared along the way, I can't believe that people did that with me, right? It's like, okay, this is the information I'm getting. I'm doing it. Do you want to do it with me? And I've had people that have taken the whole entire journey with me, which is just blows my mind. But they said, okay, now we're ready to come in because we're the ones that gave you the technology. And I knew that. They gave it to me when I was 5, but I didn't know how in depth it really was. So they named themselves as Astroluma. They are part of the Galactic Council of Light. They work directly with the Syrians and with the DNA of our bodies, and that their mission is to help us ascend the body before consciousness, and that there was a reason why that is important. So when I'm doing the light language, I'm channeling the vibrational frequency of the 12-strand DNA system or the divine molecular technology. And when I'm opening my mouth, the light language are the quantum equations that are opening up if you want to say the grid system of the body, the biofield, to be held at 963 hertz. But really, it's not a hertz wave, it would be a scalar wave. But So when I open my mouth, I do channel information as well. So we have open sessions where I will go into channel and people can ask questions. They can ask for healings, and I transmit the frequency in the purest place that I can. And having the technology running in me, it makes it a lot easier because I can tap into the frequency of the intelligence that's actually speaking. And so when I do the codes, it's holding the quantum the quantum codes, light codes, to activate the DNA.
So it actually will, like, if you are you going to do it something for us on the
Do you
show?
want me to? I certainly can.
Absolutely, but I want the listeners to know that they'll also be getting activated if they listen to it, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you don't want a transformation in your life, then turn off the podcast right now.
It's so
No,
true.
you
It's
just don't want that, right? Yes, you
right.
want transformation. So, is there anything we can do to prepare ourselves to receive it, the best when you do it? Like, do we have to close our eyes, or what's the best
One
thing?
of the things again, and this is, I feel like one of the biggest, most powerful ways that we can receive is where we're putting our consciousness. And so I think let's just start with like just a 30-second exercise that I taught you at the event, and that's the sunflower exercise. So I'm going to show you the difference of where to hold your consciousness. So first, I'll have everybody shut their eyes and just imagine a sunflower. So as you're imagining it, you're just pulling it, right in front, if you will, and you're just notice what your brain feels like and what your body feels like as you hold that image of a sunflower. Okay, and now you can open your eyes and shake it out. All right, so now shut your eyes again. And now we're going to ask that your divine molecular technology, the intelligence of source that's stored in your DNA, to show you a sunflower. So you're allowing your DNA to activate, releasing a frequency of a divine sunflower. And you're going to stay in that space of allowing it to be shown versus going to your imagination. And as you're allowing that to activate, you're just having the experience and noticing how your body feels different, and maybe the image could be different. You may sense it, know it, hear it. And then you can open your eyes. So that second state is the state that you want to be in when you're receiving the light language. And this is because then you're having the experience of your DNA activating instead of you taking your mind trying to make something happen. You're allowing it to happen, and then you're having the experience of it. Okay, so we'll do it. We'll just have I'm just going to call in the Astroluma and just let them come through. Honey, you got to go lay down. My dog is here trying to have some attention. Okay. So our intention is just to connect into Astroluma, and we just ask for whatever is needed this moment. We are honored to have this experience with each of you. And our desire is that you feel the activation of your divine technology within, to have the experience of infinite possibilities, love, connection, the unified field as the body. So if you have an intention that you would like to have worked on, just simply place that intention in your heart space. as we activate your divine molecular technology. We will begin to code. We will first code to dissolve limitation, beliefs, resistance. Sushin tsakarun soko sarai saran chikariken pasako shotu tikina. Oshinakaro jay shikana soko shotu tu. As we bring the particles of the body into wave form, releasing all density. Shin saran say koso shirorun shikadera. Asakashun toshikan saz rush kadsi. Sasha katati shikaching shu shikati shikara. As we suspend all the particles of the body into wave form, we activate the frequency of your divine technology to inform with the frequency of your intention or the experience of infinite possibilities. Shinsaran Sutsikase Tokaso Shon Toko Saraj Shiki Tokosha Kosha Katasa Kashin Katakachu Tupara Zazaran Chukador Rush Sichkara. Feeling the particles of the body as they move into the frequency of Source. And as we bring the particles back into the frequency of form, holding the vibrational state of Source. Sakanano shoshos run shikiri to Kushna, Lasakada kun suchuko, Lasakashe taka. The forming consciousness to be held in the new frequency as the particles move from wave to form, collapsing, redesigning, and aligning as we move this last frequency through the mind. Sakasrun she sako sugoran chakatakashikatan. Asakatu shoshkatasakin surun shikatagetsakas sushikado. Sisarun susase sarashkara. Feeling the frequencies as it realigns the physical brain to be held in the vibrational pattern of the particles of Source. You may feel pressure in the brain as we work with the electric responses to hold the vibrational impulse, redesigning and aligning the particles of reality. We now bring the particles of the body and the particles of reality into an entangled state. As one particle is altered, all particles of reality are altered. As the vibrational state of your body matches the new reality of your intention, we'll now lock in the particles to be held in the experience, to be held consciously through the expression of your intention at source frequency. Sakasun shikara sorshikan motsoko shidara shinkitara sakanto sho. Ashita kashutu shidankan. And this last frequency will be beyond words. We'll be silent for just a moment. And the transmission is now complete. We honor each of you. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Jewels. I don't want to take us out of this frequency, but go check out Jewels at Becoming BioQuantum. She's got a beautiful website. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to the audience.
Oh gosh, I just want to thank you for holding such a beautiful container, and for everyone that's listening, if you're still with us, thank you for hanging in there with us, and I just sending you so much love.
We both send you all so much love, and know our intentions are to help raise the vibration of the planet. Thank you all. See you soon. Goodbye. We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.